And so my question to you is, when you are looking at, culture fit within your platform and your holding company and the companies you're working with, do you also, I'm curious, how do you attract and keep those A player team? Because like you mentioned, where, hey, do you give them phantom stock? Do you, structure out kind of the compensation plan, say, hey, maybe you'll take a smaller salary, but you have a lot of the upside in regards to equity and so forth. I'm just curious, how do you structure that? Because the importance of, like you mentioned, finding A players on your team to help you with that North Star of that $1 billion kind of enterprise value.
So if I look at all the empires that I've built and run over my career, and a lot of the ones that I work with, they really don't have a product. Product is intangible. So, a commercial laundry service company, an HVAC and refrigeration service company, it's like you can't buy a box of service and put it on a shelf and then take it down when your equipment breaks and, crack it open and sprinkle it and your stuff starts working. The product and service, if you can't put your company's product or service on a shelf, and use it later, then your real product is people. And so when I get into a business, my first focus is on building a great culture in that platform company that I start with. I want to be the employer of choice. I want, when I have open jobs, I want my employees to refer their family members, their friends. I want people to love being there. My one goal and objective when I get into a company as a CEO is I want to build a culture where people can spend their entire career in one place, and that's in my company. How do I do that? Well, if that's my one goal, there's four legs to my four-legged stool. I got to pay a fair wage, or I'm going to lose talent. Just like I don't nickel dime when I'm buying great companies to put together in a buy and build. It's like I'm not trying to skimp when it comes to people. It's like in today's world, the hardest thing for us to do is attract and retain employees. And so if you're going to build an empire, I need talent. You need lots of talent. And as the company gets bigger, that talent has to be able to grow with that business, and I have to recognize and I have to invest in it and train it and make sure that we've got the resources that we need. So I start with my base by building a great culture. If I build a strong culture, I get an engaged workforce. That workforce takes care of my customers, and the customers give us more stuff, and revenue rains from the sky. And that's my secret sauce. So I always start by investing very heavily in culture. When I'm looking at doing a buy and build, or I'm looking at buying other companies and bolting them on, culture is one of the heaviest things that I need to look at. Because if I get a misalignment in culture, again, I'll go back to that same example. 23 entrepreneurs come in, we're all shareholders in the mothership. We're all aligned. If I had one bad apple, the ripples and the damage it could do to my culture, could really derail the effort. And so, I believe very strongly in knowing what good looks like before I start looking to buy something. Otherwise, you suffer from what I call shiny penny syndrome. And this happens even at the PE firm level. Hey, I need to do a buy and build. I got to buy a bunch of stuff. This guy's at yes. I got a price I can afford. So I don't care what the hell's wrong with it. I'm just going to buy it. And I get shiny penny syndrome, and everything I look at all of a sudden starts looking good, and I'm ignoring the obvious warts. And so I always develop my list of filters, I call them, up front. What does good look like? I want good companies with good reputations in their marketplace, with good entrepreneurs who will be, call it additive to the culture and additive to the intellectual horsepower that I've got. And if I find a toxic person, I won't buy the company. I just don't go there. It's like, again, arbitrage is going to get me my return. I've got a limited window to work with. Anything that will detract from success, including bad personalities of bad actors, or companies that are problematic or are fixer-uppers, that just is going to detract from my value creation process. And so I don't buy. I'm very disciplined. I'm also disciplined on price. If I'm paying 5 times because I believe 5 times is the right price for an industry, when I encounter a great company with a great entrepreneur and they say, I want 8, I say, God bless you. Good luck to you. I'm sure you'll find it out there, but you won't find it for me because I'm buying at this price. And so you have to not only meet all my criteria, including culture, including all of these things that we talked about, but you also have to be at the price point that I'm willing to pay. So when I bought 23 great companies, I paid on average 5 times for each. not 10 for one because I liked it and 3 because it was a fixer upper. It's like I paid around 5 times each, call it 4 to 6 times, bought nothing but good companies, climbed the PE pyramid, sell it at a higher multiple, reap the arbitrage, which was hundreds of millions of dollars.
No, that makes perfect sense in regards to the way you structure it. And, I think it's impressive the way you built this curated thesis and this filter process. And those are basically what you're saying are non-negotiables, where it's like, hey, if they don't fit or if it's a toxic person, period, you're not going to do a business. Even if it's a good business, even if it's a good profit margins, even if it's like really scaling and you got year over year growth and whatever, reality is that one toxic person will ruin the whole thing. And so it's just not worth it. And I
Well,
love
you
what you're
keyed
saying.
on culture was so important to this. And it's when you ignore what's important, you make mistakes and that derails. That's why you talked about, great IP, horrible culture. That's a mismatch.
Well, I think it's just so interesting because I think sometimes, and I've been guilty of this when I'm looking at some company, I'm trying to tell myself, oh, it's going to be okay. Because if I just find another XYZ, or if I, just solve this solution, or if I find someone and, I'll fire them, whatever. And the reality is you just got to, it's like dating almost, you got to take the person as face value. You don't go in a relationship thinking you can fix it. You just go in there and say, hey, this is it. And that's,
And you know
can you
what?
accept
And
it?
entrepreneurs are always on their best behavior. They're behind a mask, but somewhere during that deal negotiation, they'll peek out, and the real person and the real personality, you'll get glimpses of it. And you have to be tuned into when you see and get glimpses that you don't like. You're getting a peek at what the partner's going to look like after the marriage is consummated.